Good morning, everyone. Welcome back for another interesting subject. So, last week I talked about the names of the planets being related to the Roman gods, and then I also briefly mentioned the Roman gods opposite in Greek mythology, with being all of the names origin coming from Greece. So, today I want to talk about Greek mythology, but in pop culture. So we all know a lot of the stories, Hercules, but did you all know, for instance, Hercules is not correct? If you're talking about Hercules in a Greek mythology sense, it's wrong. His Greek name is Heracles. Hercules is actually his Roman name, not Greek name, but he's become so big in pop culture that everyone just like calls him Hercules, and it just sounds better than Heracles, or if I say that correct. um, but anyways, so there are lots of Greek heroes, with most famously being um, Hercules. So of course, there's then all these movies about the Greek gods. Um, take Wrath of the Titans and Clash of the Gods. It's a two-part movie. Clash of Gods first, where that two movies are about Perseus, another son of Zeus. Oh, Zeus had a lot of affairs with naughty, so with humans. So yeah, they like making movies about these people because even though they are in myths and legends, they sometimes give us hope. I mean, take Perseus for instance. He grew up a fisherman's man's and wife's child, were poor as hell, and then he learns his real father is actually a god in Greek mythology, and he goes on to be one of the base heroes in the ancient world. Same goes for Hercules. The list goes on. Some of them, even in Greek mythology, went on to become gods themselves from the heroes. Now, gods with a small letter G, and it's Greek mythology. It's not real. It's legend stories, stories to inspire, to entertain, and for the people living in ancient Greece and ancient Roman, for them it wasn't stories. For them it were their religion, but it were also a way of understanding the world. If you look at Greek mythology, you have the primordial gods, what is effectively what we know as nature. So that the sky, which were Uranus, Uranka in Greek and Uranus um, in Roman. I hope I'm saying these names correct. They have really weird names. Um, Mother Earth, which is Gaia, Oceana, which ocean, and then after them you get uh, the Titans, which were the children, and they were also all these, the one holding up the sky, Atlas holding the sky. Everyone knows the pop culture reference from me sitting and then holding the earth, which is also actually incorrect. He didn't hold the earth on his shoulder, he held the sky. So they, in ancient Greece, they didn't know how the sky could be separate from the earth, so they had the Titan Atlas that would hold the sky on his back while he is sitting on the earth. So, and then after them is the Greek gods, as in which is popular in pop culture, such as the Percy Jackson movies, books about him. If you just type their names, you're going to type ZE, and Google will give you Zeus as a search reference. So they are everywhere, and they are a bit more human-like than the previous two stages of the Greek gods, and Roman gods follow the same principle, with Saturn being Kronos, like I said last week. And so when we talk about pop culture, we usually reference Zeus and them, and they, in terms of Greek mythology, how the ancient Greek people tried to understand and make sense of the world. These were not maybe as powerful as the previous gods, but they uh, were seen as um, ways to explain stuff. So they would have Zeus, since he's the god of the sky, he controls lightning. Um, Poseidon, since he's the god of the sea, he controls storms and tsunamis and all of that, because they didn't know how to work. So it's actually interesting how how much science works on basis on these stuff. We now know how lightning works with friction that creates electric charge and hitting the earth. We know how air currents makes the tsunamis, or well, the earthquakes makes the tsunamis, but storms come from air currents and all of that. So even though we don't put a deity behind them, we are still trying to understand what they tried to understand 3,000 years ago. When I looked at this morning at a site um, of ancient Greece, where they started Greek myths, Greek um, location stories. It started as far back as 2200 before Christ. So that means 4,000 years ago, where the first in um, literature stuff about it goes on about how Atlantis were colonized. I know, I didn't even know Atlantis were part of it, but that's how big the Greek culture is. Even far stretched stuff like a advanced city being sunken under the ocean. Sunken. Even that has its roots in Greek mythology. And the same goes for Roman mythology. The Roman Empire was so strong, and both the Roman and the Greeks made modern society. The Greeks started with democracy ages ago, long before any of us even existed. They already invented it. Mathematics. Greeks love their mathematics. Ancient Greece had already shown the Earth, or they calculated the Earth's circumference by by looking at the angle of the sun. The ancient Romans, their military tactics are still used today, but more advanced these days, not entirely the same, but it's still their tactics, their way of defensive structures were used up until the 19th century in the way that cities were built. Now, the 19th century is in quotes. It can be plus or minus a bit depending, but there's no clear that day it stopped happening. So just like plus or minus. But it shows you Greek, the ancient Greece, ancient Romans, even ancient Egypt. They also had their own gods with Ra and all of them. They, even though they lived thousands of years ago, with Roman Empire being the latest one, being before and after crisis, the birth of Christ, it is still long ago, and they still influence a lot of what we do. Our government politics is based on um, Roman senates, although it's but well, maybe not. I would have said bit more organized, but yeah, it's not everyone is organized, so maybe not. But they still influence our stuff today, even though we are not in their regions anymore. I mean, take Emperor Neo that uh, rebuilt Rome after the Great Fire of Rome. This is actual thing that happened, not mythology. He almost drove the Roman Empire, into the ground because his plan, he wanted to make the grandest, most artistic, militaristic city in the world, in Rome. And today we have one of the um, prettiest city, most visited cities in the world, with still some of landmarks that has withstood the age of time. They are still living with us, their culture. We just call it now a mythology and not a culture anymore. So it's weird how time changed, but that's the thing. Greeks, Romans, they had a time and they left a great legacy. The question is now, can our empire that the world is being built at this moment, can they leave behind a great legacy? We already had great moments. We were the first to touch the moon. We just sent a new satellite 2 weeks ago with the Parker Solar Probe to touch the sun. Well, touching quotation marks again. But we are achieving stuff. Will they talk about us in 2000 years from now as a great empire like the Greeks and Romans? It remains to be seen. But yeah, even though a lot of their stuff is in myths and legends, just like King Arthur, is he real, is he not? We don't know. He turned into legend, but he might have been an actual military man in the Saxon and Crusade era. The point is, they left behind great stuff for us. Are we going to leave behind something for the future of mankind? Thank you, Eva. So